He was the richest man on the flight, but at that moment, no amount of money could silence the cries of his son. The airplane cabin buzzed with quiet frustration. People shifted in their seats, headphones pressed tight against their ears, trying to escape the piercing cries of a little boy sitting in first class. The boy was around 6, with golden hair and frightened eyes that darted around the cabin like a trapped bird. He cried not out of mischief, but out of confusion, and something deeper. His father, Daniel Warren, a billionaire businessman known for his calm authority, sat helpless beside him. His tailored suit and expensive watch seemed useless against the raw power of a child's tears. He tried to comfort him, softly, gently, but the boy didn't respond. You see, Daniel's son, Ethan, was deaf. He had lost his hearing after a high fever when he was just 2 years old. Since then, the world had been a silent movie for him, and on this flight, surrounded by strange faces and roaring engines, he felt utterly lost. Daniel pulled out his tablet, showing bright cartoons, hoping to distract him. But Ethan turned away, tears streaming down his face, his small hands trembling. Passengers whispered. Some glared. A few even called the flight attendants, complaining about the noise. For the first time in years, Daniel, a man who could buy almost anything, felt powerless. He had built skyscrapers, controlled companies, and been praised on magazine covers. Yet right now, he couldn't even comfort his own son. He signed awkwardly to Ethan, his fingers stiff and unsure. Daniel had learned a few signs from Ethan's therapist, but his busy life never gave him enough time to practice. Ethan didn't understand what his father was trying to say. He cried harder, covering his face with both hands. The flight attendant tried to help, offering toys and chocolates, but Ethan refused them all. Daniel lowered his head in defeat, whispering under his breath, I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. Across the aisle, a little girl watched quietly. She was around 8 or 9, sitting with her mother. Her name was Lily. She had brown curls tied in a messy ponytail, and curiosity sparkled in her eyes. She tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered something. Her mother nodded, unsure, but gave her a gentle smile, a silent permission. Lily unbuckled her seatbelt, picked up her small pink backpack, and slowly walked toward the crying boy. Daniel looked up, startled. Sweetheart, it's okay, please go back to your seat, he said kindly, thinking she was just a polite child trying to help. But Lily didn't stop. She knelt beside Ethan, who had buried his face in his small hands. Then she gently tapped his shoulder. Ethan looked up, startled, his red, teary eyes wide with fear. And then, something unexpected happened. Lily raised her small hands and began to sign. Her fingers danced gracefully in the air. Are you okay? Ethan froze. His crying stopped mid-breath. He blinked, unsure if he understood correctly. Lily smiled softly and signed again, Don't be scared. My name is Lily. What's your name? Ethan hesitated, then slowly signed back, Ethan. For the first time since the plane had taken off, he smiled, a fragile, trembling smile. The passengers nearby watched in silence as the two children began signing to each other. Lily made funny faces, told him she was flying to visit her grandmother, and even taught him a few silly signs that made him laugh. Daniel sat there, speechless. He had never seen his son smile so openly with a stranger. He felt a lump rise in his throat, the kind that comes when pride and heartbreak mix together. The cabin, once filled with restless noise, now grew calm. People smiled. Even the flight attendants paused, watching the two children in awe. Ethan giggled silently as Lily showed him how to sign airplane, flapping her hands like wings. For a child who had lived in silence, her gestures were like music. Daniel leaned back in his seat, tears welling in his eyes. He whispered under his breath, Thank you, whoever you are. If you're still listening, please, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Because what happens next will touch your heart even deeper. As the plane soared above the clouds, something beautiful unfolded in seat 2A. Lily and Ethan continued signing playfully, laughter without sound, joy without words. Daniel watched them, each sign carving a new emotion in his chest. For years, he had blamed himself for not doing enough, for not learning Ethan's language, for not slowing down his empire to simply understand his son. Lily's mother noticed Daniel's expression and leaned over. "She learned sign language last year," she said softly. "Her best friend at school is deaf. She practices every day." Daniel turned to her, his voice trembling slightly. "She's a blessing. I don't think you understand what she just did." The woman smiled. "Sometimes, kindness speaks louder than words." As the flight continued, Daniel found himself watching Ethan and Lily like a man discovering light after years of darkness. Every sign, every laugh, every moment, it was a reminder of what he'd been missing. When the flight attendants came by with drinks, Daniel asked for paper and a pen. He began scribbling notes in a hurry, words he wanted to say but couldn't yet sign. He made a list. Learn sign language. More time with Ethan. Listen without ears. Love without conditions. By the time the plane began descending, Ethan was resting peacefully, his head on Daniel's arm. Lily sat back in her seat, drawing pictures in her notebook, one of a smiling boy waving from an airplane window. When the plane landed, Daniel stood up and walked to Lily's mother. He knelt down in front of Lily, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, placing his hand on his heart. Then, with trembling fingers, he signed the same words, "Thank you." Lily's eyes lit up. She signed back, "You're welcome." People around them clapped softly. Some wiped away tears. It was one of those rare moments when humanity seemed to pause, to remember what connection truly means. Outside the airport, Daniel carried Ethan in his arms. The boy was still holding a small drawing Lily had given him, two stick figures on an airplane, holding hands, surrounded by clouds. As Daniel stood by his car, looking at his sleeping son, something inside him shifted forever. He realized he had spent years building towers of glass and steel, but failed to build the only bridge that mattered, the one between his heart and his son's world. That night, he sat in Ethan's room long after the boy had fallen asleep. He opened his laptop, searching online, how to learn sign language for parents of deaf children. Weeks passed. Daniel canceled meetings, postponed trips, and began attending evening classes. At first, his fingers stumbled, he felt clumsy, frustrated. But every time he thought of giving up, he remembered Lily's tiny hands signing with such grace and kindness. Little by little, Daniel learned. And one evening, as he sat across from Ethan at dinner, he finally signed a full sentence. "I love you, son." Ethan froze, his spoon midair. Then his face broke into the purest, brightest smile Daniel had ever seen. He signed back, "I love you too, Dad." Tears rolled down Daniel's cheeks. He realized that in learning Ethan's silent language, he had also learned something even greater, the language of love, patience, and humility. Months later, Daniel started a foundation for children with hearing impairments. He named it Lily's Hands. The girl's simple act of kindness had inspired a movement, a bridge between two worlds. The first event of the foundation invited hundreds of families. As Daniel took the stage to speak, he looked across the audience and saw Lily sitting in the front row with her mother, waving proudly. Daniel smiled, and before speaking into the microphone, he signed the first line. Kindness doesn't need sound, it only needs a heart willing to listen. The crowd erupted in applause, some clapping, others waving their hands in the air, the sign language way of cheering. And in that moment, Daniel realized, it was never about money, or power, or control. It was about understanding, about listening to the silence that speaks louder than any word ever could. We live in a world full of noise, but sometimes, the most powerful conversations happen in silence. When we stop trying to be understood and start trying to understand, we build bridges that no sound can destroy. Because love doesn't need to be heard. It only needs to be felt. Red Heart.